All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. Before we begin, let me introduce some members of town government that act as advisors to the board. Sneaking up behind me here is Simone Freeman, counsel to the board. To her left is Rachel Lenberger, attorney with the town attorney's office. To her left is Blaise Donadio, a senior planner with the planning department. To his left is Matt Mazzaros, planner in the planning department. To his left is Sabrina Butita, an environmental analyst with the Department of Environment and Waterways. You are here this evening seeking relief from the town zoning ordinance. New York State statutes require that any town that adopts zoning must also have a board of appeals to act as a relief valve so that persons can seek relief without the expense of legal proceedings. The most common kinds of applications before this board are variances. Area variances deal with dimensions of lot area, frontage, height, setbacks, and parking spaces. New York State statutes mandate that the board must consider the following 5 criteria when deciding area variances. When you come to the podium to present your application, please address these 5 areas. They're posted on these televisions and also on the piano right behind us here. First one is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created. Second one is whether the applicant has other feasible alternatives. Third is whether the variance is substantial. The fourth is whether an adverse impact on the environment will be created. And the fifth is whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. The statute requires the board to balance the interest of the applicant and those of the neighborhood or community. The statute further requires that the board shall grant the minimum variance it shall deem necessary and adequate. At the same time, preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board has the power to impose reasonable conditions for granting variances. Okay, regarding procedures, cases will be called in the order that they were advertised. When your case is called, please come forward, submit your affidavits of mailing receipts to Mr. Donadio, and then you'll be given the opportunity to explain to the board why you need the variance. After the applicant is done speaking, all interested parties will be given one opportunity and only one opportunity to be heard. Please organize your thoughts and keep your remarks factual and related to the case. Then I will ask the applicant to come back to the podium to answer your concerns. The board will then close the case and reserve decision. After all hearings are closed, the board will review cases and decide some of them. Others will be reviewed at a later date. There are 3 ways to find out the results of your case. You can wait until after the public hearing, but there's no guarantee that the board will act on the case tonight. Second way is you can check the website after 11 a.m. tomorrow. And the third, you can wait and be notified by mail. After the hearing is closed, no additional information or testimony can be submitted by the applicant or any interested parties. We have one adjournment this evening. I believe it's case number 19231. Carrie Larson, is anyone here for that case? We're going to adjourn that to a date to be determined later. Okay, and ready to go?
Ready to go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 19229, Michelle Jennings, 35 Daisy Drive, Kings Park. The location of the property, the northeast corner of Daisy Drive and Oak Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 2 feet for an existing 128 square foot shed, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 32% for an existing asphalt driveway.
Good evening.
Hi.
Can we have your name and address to the record, please?
Sure. Tracy Rivera Rena, Tracy's Permits, 360 Rena, R-E-N-N-A. Tracy's Permits, 363 Terryville Road, Terryville.
And
Good
we did
evening.
receive the power of attorney, correct?
Yes. That was dropped off. I'm here representing Ms. Michelle Jennings, 35 Daisy Drive, Kings Park. We're here for a couple of reasons today. We're here, one is for a shed in a side yard. If you take a look at the parcel and see how the property is actually, the dimensions on the property, it's not as if we have any kind of alternative place to really put the shed. There's been some pictures that were submitted. I know that you guys go around and drive and look at some pictures. So the shed that they have is not very high. It actually matches the house. It's not really any kind of done negative in the neighborhood. No environmental impacts. It's just a shed that's in the side yard. And once again, if you take a look at the survey, there's not really much alternative area for that. The second is the overage in the driveway, the asphalt driveway. It's supposed to be at 25%. We're at 32%. It's very common for driveways to be over. And once again, if this property had been tapered off straight, then maybe we wouldn't have such an issue. But the property actually kind of goes in a curve, which therefore limits front yard square footage. There was some question about something that was on the survey showing some like a Belgian block, or if it was in the town right away. And we did reach out to Highway Department, who was supposed to send something over to the zone board, just saying that they have no issues with the curbs or the slates or anything that is impeding in town area, and that if it was to be damaged with a plow, that they're not responsible. There was already a letter sent over to zone board on that. Once again, I don't think the shed or the driveway are a negative impact, not an environmental impact. Doesn't lower the value of any homes in the area, and sheds and side yards and driveways that are overage in calculations are common applications. I'll address any questions.
Any members of the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we did an inspection of the property yesterday morning. We did notice that there were several encroachments of vehicles and other accessory items like swing sets in the paper road.
Okay, if that's the case, I'll have those addressed.
So our recommendation to the board would be that any approval that you may grant be conditioned that the encroachments be removed.
Absolutely.
DW?
Yes, our comments were the same, and we recommend that they contact the Highway Department, which it sounds like they've been in contact already.
Okay. Would anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion,
Thank you. I apologize for not addressing the paper road and the encroachments.
no problem. Thank you.
I know better. Happy New Year, have a good night. Thank you so much.
One second, if you could just come over.
While we're doing that.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19230, Michael Cavazzulli, 34 Ashley Circle, Comac, the location of the property, the southwest corner of Ashley Circle, the southwest side of Ashley Circle, 380 feet south of Scarlet Drive. The property is zoned R6. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the maximum depth of a deck, patio, or paving from the dwelling from 10 feet to 18 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 20-foot concrete patio.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Michael Cavaluzzi, 34 Ashley Circle, Comac, New York.
Can you spell your last name?
Cavalluzzi.
Thank you very much. You want to tell us why you're here?
Welcome. Just here to get the approval to put my patio in, to have that setback pushed back further.
All right. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
No question.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right. Anyone from the audience like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Here, I play.
Oh, yeah. I have, thank you. The next case on the agenda, case number 19232, Jennifer Ginsburg, 22 Knight Lane, Kings Park. The location of the property, the south side of Knight Lane, 167 feet east of Armour Court. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 10 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 24 feet, to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 43 feet, for a proposed 585 square foot rear deck.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Salvatore Koshia from Permits R Us, 338 Jericho Turnpike, Syosset, New York, 11791.
We need either a power of attorney or the applicant first.
Applicant's right here.
Okay.
She'll give her.
Name and address for the record, please.
Jennifer Ginsburg, 22 Knight Lane, Kings Park.
All right, would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf? Okay, thank you.
COSCIA. Good evening again. So I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Ginsburg for the property that's located in R110 zone. She's proposing a rear yard deck which will have a 10-foot side yard setback instead of a 12-foot, and an aggregate of 24 feet instead of the 28 feet, and a rear yard setback of 43 feet instead of required 50. Now, the deck originally that's there was approved by the board back in '97 as a 16 by 20 deck. She's looking to extend it out an extra foot and then bring it in line with the house, which would make it slightly bigger. It's not going past the house. She's already spoken to the neighbor on the left side, which is mostly affected where the 10-foot setback is. They have no objection to the deck. Deck is obviously needed because her family has grown now. She has a small child, and they could use the outdoor area so that they could be outside and watch her child while she's in the house, rather than going down the hill because you won't be able to see her if she's outside playing.
Is that it?
That's it.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
Do we have an LWRP, or do we need an LWRP? I see a note here.
One is not needed.
Not needed?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Richard D'Souza, capital D-E, capital S-O-U-S-A. I live at 101 Boxwood Drive, Kings Park, New York. My wife and I are the owners of the property at 101 Boxwood Drive, Kings Park, which abuts at the rear of our home with the house at 22 Knight Lane. It is our opinion that the request for the variance 19332, as requested, take into consideration the following potential problems. The retaining wall that is at the rear left corner of my property, which belongs to 22 Knight Lane, be declared safe and in compliance with all appropriate town codes and ordinances. The wall is leaning at about 1 to 2 inches in the direction of my property at the highest point of the wall. Additionally, a section of this wall is encroaching onto my property. Second thing, is there and will there be sufficient dry wells to carry discharged rainwater as not to drain onto our property, which is at a lower elevation than this adjoining backyard? Number 3, will the zoning board be able to guarantee that these requests are compliant for the safety of my property and home being considered? Thank you for your ability to grant my wife and I peace of mind regarding this potential deck. P.S. The current deck is approved and has a permit of use as a question. Thank you, Richard and Eileen D'Souza.
Thank you. We'll get the answers from the applicant when they come back up.
Thank you.
Evening. My name's Diane Pullman, P-O-H-L-M-A-N-N, 103 Boxwood Drive, Kings Park. I live behind the applicant, and we share 6 feet of property line. I'm here this evening because I'm concerned for the safety for myself, my family, and my property. Before the town approves or denies the variance, how will the town assure me that the retaining wall holding up the Ginsburg property can withstand the additional weight of a larger deck? The current status of the retaining wall at the back of my property shows severe corrosion in the wood structure. There is one vertical beam with one large screw holding up a portion of the wall. The wall is also leaning towards our yard. I do have pictures to show you. Thank goodness for the vines. That is probably holding up the fence and the retaining wall right now. In the past year, there have been 2 water-related episodes that further deteriorated this retaining wall. One episode, the Ginsburg above-ground pool collapsed and spilling thousands of gallons of water onto this retaining wall, as well as the 10 inches of rain we all experienced in the summer. I want to be assured that this variance application will not go any further until the retaining wall has been assessed.
Thank you.
Can I present these photos?
Sure. Thank you. We'll make these part of the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Garcia, you want to come back up and address the concerns of the neighbors?
Yes. As far as the retaining wall, I'd have to get a new survey done to see if the retaining wall actually is on my client's property to see whether or not it's her responsibility. If it is her responsibility and it is falling down, she'd be more than happy to address it. However, the deck has no bearing on the retaining wall. The larger size of the deck has no bearing on the weight 50 feet down from where it is. As far as water runoff and drainage, it's not required. The original house was constructed and built that way and approved by the building department. Making the deck bigger has no bearing on water runoff. She did make a mention about a tree falling, and there was a pool at one time, and there was water runoff. The neighbors did sue my client for a tree that fell that did not belong to her. It was on somebody else's property, fell onto hers, destroyed the pool. Water did run off. Clients and neighbors in the back sued my client and lost in court, and most likely that's why they're here tonight. However, as far as the only concern is the retaining wall, if the retaining wall is on her property and it is falling down, I'm sure the building department will come and do their inspection. She'd be more than happy to address it.
Okay. Counsel, I believe we're not allowed to address the retaining wall because it's not part of the subject of the variance?
So in the event that it is, I think somebody claims it is hers and it's on their property, then we usually just make sure that's an enforcement that's cleared up, but otherwise, you will just hear
Blaze,
it.
I only know this because I took the BZA seminar last night and they told me that. So, Blaze, how do we deal with something like this?
I would close it and just ask them to.
Not sure.
So we'll close it and just mention it to the building department that, you know, to check the retaining wall for safety. And
They would have to inspect.
okay, all right. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I guess we can entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Alrighty. The next case on the agenda, case number 19233, Howard Peter Norden III, 42 Shepherd Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property, the northwest corner of Shepherd Lane and Annetta Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 46 feet for a proposed 120 square foot first floor addition and proposed 103 square foot second floor attic addition.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Can
Board.
we have your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Jason Merkel, Merkel, and I'm at 11 Sims Street, Patchogue, New York, and I'm here with the applicant.
Okay, we can speak to the applicant first.
Howard Peter Norden III, Norden, 42 Shepherd Lane.
Thank you very much. Would like this gentleman to speak on your behalf.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
The Norden family is here to request a rear yard variance, reducing the 50-foot rear yard zoning requirement to 45 feet. The existing kitchen in their house is too small for the family's needs, and they'd like to complete an addition into the rear yard to expand their kitchen. The addition will be 1 story with an attic storage above. The variance would not produce an impact on adjacent properties of the neighborhood. It will not be visible from the street. It will not block any views to the neighboring backyards. The request is not substantial, reducing the rear yard requirement by only 5 feet. The massing of the addition responds to the existing house, matching roof lines and roof pitches. The variance would not cause any adverse effect on the environment, as the addition will be just replacing some grass. And the difficulty of the rear yard variance was created by the applicant's desire to have a more functional kitchen. We believe the request today is not substantial and would only have a positive impact on the neighborhood. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning Department.
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right. Does anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Hearing closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Roll with it, please.
All right. The next case on the agenda, 19234 Arthur Breva, 14 Walnut Road, Kings Park. The location of the property, the north side of Walnut Road, 266 feet west of Longfellow Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 22 feet for a proposed 224 square foot porch addition, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 1 foot, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 12 feet for an existing 50 square foot shed, to reduce the minimum distance from any lot line from 6 feet to 0 for an existing 198 square foot pavilion, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 29% for an existing asphalt driveway, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 32% for an existing paver patio, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface on the southwest side yard from 25% to 76% for existing paving, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface on the northeast side yard from 25% to 86% for existing paving, to reduce the minimum setback of paving from all property lines from 1 foot to 0, to reduce the minimum setback of a 4-foot retaining wall from the property line from 4 feet to 0, to reduce the minimum setback of a 6-foot fence from a 4-foot retaining wall from 4 feet to 0, to increase the maximum height of a 6-foot fence on top of a 4-foot retaining wall from 6 feet to 10 feet for an existing 6-foot vinyl fence on top of the existing block retaining wall.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good.
My name is Paul Biegler of PEB Design Group. I'm here representing Art Breva.
Do you have a power of attorney?
I should, yeah.
Because I don't have it marked
Okay.
as being received.
Is the applicant here?
No, Art couldn't make it tonight.
We can't hear it without either the applicant or a power of attorney.
I thought the power of attorney was submitted.
Nothing in the file. I didn't see anything. It wouldn't be here, right?
I think it would be in the file, would it not? You don't.
Biegler, Biegler.
No. That's EIS here. EAS. Nothing. If you could get him up here, we can,
Yeah, no, he had emergency, he couldn't make it tonight.
we can adjourn it. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to proceed and just let him clarify that, and if not, we could always.
He'd have to come back. We'd have to.
Yes.
So town attorney believes that she recalls seeing it. Can you produce it or have the applicant produce it tomorrow morning?
Absolutely, sure.
We'll hear the case, but obviously if it,
Yeah.
You'll have to come back, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, we'd have to come back and,
You'd have to come back and present it because you have to have standing to present the case.
oh, okay. So we could, so we'd go on the next calendar date? Is that,
They already closed that one, right? Yeah, it would be probably, if there's room, the first meeting in February.
that's, okay. So there's no alternative to this?
Well, it was if you already submitted and you can resubmit it to us tomorrow, I mean, I'm gonna go, I don't have it.
But if you're not 100% certain.
Yeah, if you're not 100% certain, I think we did, it sounds familiar, I think we did, but if you're not 100% familiar, I mean, it's, you know, certain.
I'm certain that we had submitted it. I know I had, the person that had worked for me had hand-delivered it to the office.
Specifically the power of attorney?
Yeah, because he asked me who's representing I said, I'm representing the case. And he brought it, he brought it,
What office did you bring it to?
the building department on Redwood.
Building department?
Yeah.
It might be safer to, I mean, rather than,
It's up to you. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, if we're not 100% sure, you'd be doing it twice and then,
Okay. Well, then let's adjourn it but the
do you
next,
think we can fit at that first meeting in? Pete left already?
can this be subject to us performing that, resubmitting that affidavit?
Of course, yeah, that's, if you can't find it or it wasn't submitted.
Right.
Then any time between now and then, as long as we have it, before the meeting.
Oh, okay. So we can't have the meeting and then submit the affidavit
No,
tomorrow?
no, because you have to have standing that you can bring the application before this board, before you actually do it.
Okay.
So the soonest would be March 11th.
if you wanna take the next case, Rachel's gonna try to pull up her email and see if, because she was on it, if
Okay,
it is
well,
the right
you wanna
one.
wait until the end of tonight and we'll see if we can find it?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
It would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, now we just told this?
No, I'll put them in here for now.
That's it.
In the file.
Matt, look, there's definitely not in there.
You want to take a look?
I didn't see it.
There we go. The next case on the agenda, case number 19235, George and Irene Cox, 19 Dorchester Road, Smithtown. The location of the property is the west side of Dorchester Road, 140 feet north of Buxton Way. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 45 feet to 39 feet, to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 340 square foot porch.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, P.O. Box 39, Bethpage, New York, 11714, Asian for the applicant, and I have power of attorney copies submitted this evening.
Yes, we have the power of
All
attorney.
right, thank you.
I've been there, I know. Okay, so we are requesting permission to reduce the front yard setback for a proposed roof-over porch. This house suffered a massive fire February 20th of 2024. It originated in the garage due to electrical wiring. The house is currently improved with 4 bedrooms and 1 full bath. So for many years prior to the fire, they entertained putting on a second-story addition, and now that they have to relocate due to the extensive damage and repairs to the home that have to be made, they figured this is the best time to do so. So they would be relocating the master bedroom from downstairs to upstairs, and again, it will remain at a 4-bedroom home. The second story will have no environmental impact as it is within the footprint of the existing dwelling. According to the owner, he has no issues with the water table at the subject parcel unless there are several days of torrential downpour, which is quite rare. The proposed porch will only encroach 1 foot additional into the front yard than the existing roof over on the home. The house was built directly at the setback line, making it impossible to ever air the porch without seeking board approval, and this is common in the area, these front porches. It'll remain unheated and unenclosed. Okay, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Oh, we'll find out. Anyone on the board have any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning.
No, thank you.
DEW?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the current application to reconstruct the existing single-family dwelling due to the fire damage does require approval from the Department of Health. We need this information in order to complete our environmental review. We have contacted the applicant's representative of their need to reach out to the Health Department. Additionally, due to the presence of high groundwater on the property, the applicant has been notified that the submission of test hole data is required. They have since submitted this material, and we are actively reviewing it. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight until we get all this additional information.
A test hole has been done?
Yes, it has, and we are aware of the health department requirements and are in the process of complying.
Thank you.
Okay, so there'll be no action tonight. As soon as DEW gives us a recommendation, we can act on it.
Yes, understood.
Okay. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Case closed. Thank you. Did he leave?
He left.
He might be out in the hallway.
Jonathan, you want this?
Put that one on the side. Yeah, that's this one. Jumble all these up, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ray.
Rocking and rolling. All right. The next case on the agenda, case number 19236, Brett Lawrence, 35 Laurel Road, Kings Park. The location of the property is the south side of Laurel Road, 311 feet north of Lincoln Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 35 feet to 27 feet for an existing 530 square foot rear 2-story addition, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 7 feet, to reduce total side yards from 28 feet to 24 feet for an existing 59 square foot 1-story side addition, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30% to 41%, to increase the maximum permitted gross floor area within the LWRP from 1,500 square feet to 2,415 square feet for existing additions. And there is nobody.
Anybody here for case number 19236? Okay.
Okay.
Looks like we're gonna have to put that one off.
Yeah.
December?
26?
You wanna, I guess, notify the applicant and work on a date with them? and-
Yeah, it'll be
Okay.
to be determined.
All right. Give me a minute, we gotta pack up.
Go for it. We're gonna be here a while anyway, so.
You wanna contact the planning department? Okay. You wanna contact the planning department and then they'll set a date for you? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have 3 to be determined. Oh, boy. Good stuff. you go. All right. The next case on the agenda, case number 19228, Comac 100 LLC, also known as McDonald's, 110 Crooked Hill Road, Comac. The location of the property, the west side of Crooked Hill Road, 215 feet west of Express Drive North, known as State Road 495. The property is zoned SCB. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum required parking from 1,393 to 849 spaces, to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 18 feet for sign numbers 18 through 21, to increase the number of ground signs from a maximum of 2 per site to 28 for sign numbers 1 through 16, to increase the number of wall signs from a maximum of 1 to 4 for sign numbers 18 through 21, to permit a wall sign not to face a public street, that would be for sign numbers 18 and 21, for a proposed 4,310 square foot food retail restaurant with drive-through.
Good evening.
Good evening. Bram Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road, Melville, New York, for the applicant. Blaise gave a nice introduction to the application. So this is the second of 2 applications we've made to this board for new restaurant developments at the Lowe's site in Comac, the former Comac Multiplex Theater, as we all know. The first application that came before you last year was for Shake Shack. That was on the first of 2 of the out parcels. This is the second application for a McDonald's. With me tonight, I have Adam Mann, who is the owner of the property. This is our 4th application for Adam within the town. He's worked on if you may remember, a redevelopment of a shopping center in Lake Grove. This board saw that application. This board also saw a Starbucks application on Jericho Turnpike. So he's very familiar with the town, and we have a good working relationship with the town. So I have Adam here. Andrew Shellhorse is here, who's the National Senior Real Estate Manager for McDonald's, if there are operational questions for McDonald's. Matt Tyler is here. He's a professional engineer from Bowler Engineering. He's worked on the site plan. And Frank Filichotto is here. He's a professional engineer from Labella Associates, who provided the parking letter that I submitted via email at the end of last week. So I think we're in a good place with this application, and I say that because I've had the opportunity to review the staff recommendations, and we are in agreement with all of them except for one on one sign only. The only disagreement we have with the staff recommendations is staff is recommending that there only be 1 out of the 2 pull-forward drive-through signs. So these are 2 signs. They are right here, signs 15 and 16. I'm going to have Matt briefly describe the site plan to you, but I just wanted to make this one point. Those 2 signs are basically to instruct drivers who are coming out of the drive-through lane whose orders are taking too long to fulfill for a place to park so that a staff member can walk out with their order. So these 2 are very important for the overall operation of the site and the overall operation of the drive-through. We've requested 2 signs, 1 for each of those parking spaces. Staff is only recommending approval of 1 of those signs. That's the only sign that staff is recommending denial of that we would like to seek an approval of. The other signs that staff is seeking or recommending denial of, which involve reducing the number of signs for driver delivery parking and also mobile order parking, are acceptable. It's just this one sign that we'd like to have considered for approval. And before I have Matt discuss briefly the site plan, I just wanted to hand in, if I could, an exhibit. I don't know if you have the most updated renderings. There's been discussions back and forth between planning department and the applicant. Right, that building, that is not a great-looking building. So we have a much better-looking building with.
We like great-looking buildings.
Yeah, much better looking building here. And it's just an example of how this applicant does work with the town. Comments came back on those elevations. Planning had asked for some brick, so brick has been added to the elevations. I just want to hand this in so that the board has the most recent elevations for the building.
you. That's plenty. Got like 50. You guys get some too.
Okay, so if the board has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I was going to ask Matt to speak briefly about the site plan, and then Frank just to speak briefly about the parking variance.
What was the sign number?
16 it would be. Yes, no, excuse me.
15 and 16.
15 and 6, those are the two, right. So
So-
15 is being recommended for approval, but 16 is being recommended for denial. So we would ask for 16 to be approved.
And 16 is essentially the same as 15, it just directs the other lane?
It's for the second parking space next to the one. We would like to have 2 parking spaces for that pull-through ordering.
Okay, thank you.
Matt's got a big knee brace on, so I'm gonna let him sit for this.
Sorry for the special treatment that I had to sit down for this.
Yep, I got, yep. Absolutely.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just for the record, my name is Matthew Tyler. I work for Bowler Engineering, New York. The address is 275 Broad Hollow Road, Suite 100 in Melville, New York.
Tyler is T-Y-L-E-R?
T-Y-L-E-R, not Taylor. I appreciate that. So just as a part of my testimony, I would like to briefly introduce the board to the site plan. I don't know if we could show it on the screen as I could direct your attention to it. Perfect. Or we could do the overall one. So just to orient everyone to our site plan, as I'm referring to it, north is facing up on the page. The subject site is located at the southeastern portion of the parcel. This parcel is adjacent to the existing Lowe's Home Improvement Center to the west, Long Island Express Drive north to the south, and Crooked Hill Road to the east. As it currently resides, the subject land is vacant and maintains impervious coverage over the entirety of the site. In the proposed condition, it is the intent of the applicant to level off the site and construct a new 4,310 square foot McDonald's. This McDonald's will have 43 indoor seats, a 44 stall parking lot with the ability to add 42 additional land bank stalls, as well as a side-by-side drive-through. The side-by-side drive-through will have the ability to have a 14-car queue with the ability to stack additional, as well as the 4 mobile order spaces currently provided, 2 McDelivery spaces, and the 2 pull-forward spaces, which we alluded to earlier by Mr. Weber. Just to move forward into the requested ground signs, as Mr. Weber provided before, just to highlight that the pull-forward spots are for drive-through use and are very important to operations. First off, if the drive-through is over inundated at all with the drive-through, they could send customers to these pull-forward spots to wait for their order to be prepped. So only having one limits the restaurant to be as efficient as possible and is really important in order to get people in and out of the site as quickly as possible. I just wanted to highlight that. The other uses for the signs, the mobile order and the McDelivery signage. The mobile order is just exactly how it sounds on the McDonald's app. You will place your order, and then once you arrive to the restaurant, you put in the number that you're in for this parking stall, and then someone from the restaurant will come and deliver your food out to your car, which then you could exit the site. The McDelivery stalls are strictly for like Uber Eats or Grubhub, whatever type of courier service there is out there. I know there's probably 100 by now. That they pull into the stall similar to the mobile order signs, and once they go into the restaurant, pick up the food, they can then deliver it to the customer off-site. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in regards to the signage or site layout if there are any.
Any questions?
No.
Planning, any questions?
No.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
I think we're good.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Weber?
Thank you. So I would just ask Frank Chodo, who prepared our parking study, just to briefly talk about the parking variance, and you certainly can ask any questions of him on that. The parking variance, just one important point, the variance we need is an overall variance. If this was a standalone site, the McDonald's site would meet the parking on its own. So the variance we're seeking is overall, and Frank will give it additional details.
Thank you, Bram. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Frank A. Filicciotto, F as in Frank, I-L-I-C-I-O-T-T-O, with the firm Labella Associates. Office is at 1 North Broadway, White Plains, New York, 10601. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York, over 20 years of experience in the field of traffic engineering, transportation planning, parking design, and site layouts. I have appeared before this board, and I was here just this past April as part of the Shake Shack application that we made, and the reason why that is relevant is because we took a very similar approach to this project, this McDonald's project that we took back in April of 2024 when we examined the parking associated with that project. The reason why we're before you for a variance is because historically the Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse has utilized lots 50.003 and 50.004, 50.004 being the McDonald's parcel, as land bank spaces. It's both parcels are currently green and have been essentially banked for parking if and when it was ever needed. When we were before you in April, I testified that we examined 10 years of parking history at Lowe's and determined that Lowe's never gets so high as 30% of its existing parking supply, the built supply, and thus never has a need for the land bank spaces. And I think anecdotally at that time, it was April, so it was springtime, and Lowe's and Home Depot, and it's very common for them to store supplies in parking spaces that are not used. So anecdotally, there really is quite a surplus of parking on the Lowe's site, which essentially leads us to conclude that the land bank spaces are not needed. There's no demand for them, and they can be repurposed. So this new study that we submitted, dated January 10th, essentially asserts that the land bank parking for Lowe's is not needed, and that the introduction of a McDonald's fast food restaurant, along with the Shake Shack, would not have a deleterious effect on parking, and that there would be sufficient parking for the entire site. And I just want to amplify what both Mr. Weber and Mr. Tyler said, is that on its own, McDonald's does satisfy the town's parking requirement of 1 per 100 with 44 spaces. And there are also 42 additional land bank spaces on the McDonald's site itself to provide for any overflow in future years. So quick summary, there's adequate parking. Lowe's is overparked now, and there's no need for the land bank spaces on lot 50.004. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you.
There you go. Comes back down to my size. So again, just to reiterate, the only the difference that we have with the staff recommendations is just seeking approval for that one additional pull forward sign. Everything else that we're in agreement with, we appreciate, again, the thoughtful consideration of the town on this application. Overall, the variances have no negative impacts. It's a fully commercial area, and it's been developed this way and grown over years for in this commercial manner. So we don't believe that these variances that we're seeking will have any impacts whatsoever negatively. And as Mr. Filicciotto said, this is the natural progression of just not needing the land bank parking and the repurposing of these lots for positive commercial use.
All right. Anyone on the board have questions for Mr. Weber?
No.
No? Planning?
No questions, but I just want to clarify for the board and for Mr. Weber in the memo why we recommended only one sign for the pull-up for the drive-through. The rationale that we used when we were determining what signs should be approved is that there are several spaces for each item, for the courier pickup, for the curbside pickup, and for the drive-through waiting area for drive-through orders to be delivered. And we felt that we could eliminate a number of signs just by minimizing the number of signs that actually identified those areas. So for example, there are 2 spaces in front of the store that are for courier pickup, and there was one sign for each space, and we thought that if you take one sign, put it at the head of both stalls, it would adequately identify it. Again, the same thing with the curbside pickup for the customers. There are 4 spaces that each had an individual sign. If we took one sign for each 2 spaces and put it at the head of those spaces, it would adequately identify those spaces. And of course, with the drive-through waiting area, waiting for their order to be delivered, there are 2 spaces. Each space had one sign. Again, we just consolidated one sign for both spaces. We're not suggesting that they eliminate the spaces. We're just suggesting that the amount of signage on site be limited to be enough to establish what those spaces are for.
And is that not an option for you to use that pull-ahead space with a singular sign that may be modified with 2 arrows that point to the 2 adjacent spaces?
So it's an interesting point, and I was thinking the same thing, but to McDonald's, that area, if I can, just briefly, that area here, that Mr. Donahue is referring to, those are these spaces here. So there are additional spaces where people can pull in and park. And here, they're not necessarily going to need to have a sign if they're a mobile customer, if these are taken, if there are fewer spaces available. But these are unique in their location, and they are head in from the drive-through. So I can understand McDonald's point, which is to have really much better signage here for these 2. It's only one sign. Again, it's interior facing, and it's really just so these drivers know these are the 2 spots, because these are the spots where staff will bring the food to. So yes, you would assume, could you assume one sign would be adequate? Maybe, but to McDonald's and in their experience and for their operation, they really would like to have these 2 signs labeled individually as such, because they are in a separate location and they are facing the drive-through directly. It is that important to them.
Thank you. Sabrina, anything?
No comments, thank you.
Would anybody in the audience like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Case closed. Thank you, Mr. Weber.
Thank you so much.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19236, Brett Lawrence, 35 Laurel Road, Kings Park. The location of the property, the south side of Laurel Road, 311 feet north of Lincoln Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 35 feet to 27 feet for an existing 530 square foot rear 2-story addition, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 7 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 24 feet for an existing 59 square foot 1-story side addition, to increase the maximum gross floor area of the lot from 30 to 41%, to increase the maximum permitted gross floor area within the LWRP from 1,500 square feet to 2,415 square feet for the existing additions.
Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Dean Kutsubis. My address is 121 Newbridge Road, Hicksville, New York, 11801. I'm here this evening with Mr. Brett Lawrence of 35 Laurel Road in Kings Park. He's the owner of the property that it's in question. We're here to legalize the rear and side addition to the house. The rear addition is 12.4 by 24.1 feet. It is it's a 2-story high, and each floor is 265 square feet. There is no basement in this addition. The first floor is a family room with a fireplace, and the second floor is a master bedroom with a full bath. The side addition is it's a 9 by 6.5 or 59 square feet vestibule, which was attached to the house. The reason we're here is this came about because recently, within the last year, there was some fire damage to the house in February of last year. He spoke to me about this. There's some fire damage to the house, after which permits were filed to repair the home for the fire. And as a result of those permit filings, it was discovered that these additions did not have permits. The additions, this hardship is somewhat not self-created. it was determined that these additions have been here for quite some time. It appears, when my client purchased the house in 2016, and those additions existed at the time. I'd also like to point out I have an aerial photo from 1984, which I'll submit, and which is, even though the photo is not that clear, it's not that clear, it clearly shows the additions on here. So even though the resolution's not that great, I'll submit this photo. And I also want to submit this sales history, and the sales history shows that the work was done 2 owners ago. So
This way.
So as I was saying, the work was done 2 owners ago, at least since 1984, since I was able to find on the Suffolk County GIS website, there was a 1984 aerial photo, which shows that the additions existed at that time. So the second owner purchased the house in 2002. The additions were there. My client purchased the house in 2016, and those additions were there. The siding, as he stated to me, the siding on the entire house was like an old-style red aluminum siding, and it was throughout the whole house. So it didn't appear that that any of this was an addition. It appeared that that's how the house was, and that's probably why it got through. The sale, the house was able to get sold twice without this being picked up at any closing. I'd also like to point out that these additions have been here for the 40 years without any neighbor complaints or building department complaints. The variances we're asking for are a very small increase from what's allowable, and for our most substantial variance is the floor area, which is approximately 900 square feet over. Our disadvantage is that this property, being 60 by 100, is much smaller than the surrounding properties, which have larger houses on them, but their advantage is that they're on larger properties. So that being said, I don't feel that this variance is substantial. It's not out of character with the neighborhood. Unless there's any questions for myself or my client, that concludes my presentation.
All right. Just like to bring up, it is substantial. It's quite a bit higher than this board typically approves, 41% for the FAR. There was no attorney and no title search on when you closed. I'm addressing Mr. Lawrence. Because that's usually picked up by the title company, not by what color siding's on the house.
That's what threw me for a loop, to be honest. Oh, my apologies. Yeah, it threw me for a loop too. I reckon I bought the house. They explained everything, that this is how it was. They kind of showed me all this work they had done. And like inside, the house looked very modern, fancy all around, like all these fancy new closets. But outside, the siding was really old. And so when I reached out to the lady who had sold me the house, who closed, the real estate agent, she said that she had submitted all this and that, but she wasn't able to get in touch with anybody about the variances. So the title thing, that was my first purchase. I was actually overseas. I came back on R&R from the Army, bought the house, and then immediately went right back overseas. So I had no idea that there was all this like stuff that had to be done. I was paying the real estate agent to get it done. So it was a sort of beginner mistake on my end. I apologize.
Well, no, that's okay. It's just we need to find a way to somehow lessen that impact. I don't know if you want to try and work with, I noticed that the vestibule on the side off the bat, I mean, if you can live without that, it kind of deals with the side yard setback and knocks off some of that square footage, which would get the FAR down if that's not 100% necessary. But if you want to maybe adjourn it and try and talk with planning about coming up with a number, I know that we just went through this 2 meetings ago. 41's a tough number to get to.
Yeah, I don't think it will make a, I mean, I understand removing a vestibule may help that number, but does it really change anything? I mean, being that this has been here for at least 40 years, I don't think we're looking to set any precedent.
Unfortunately, that's what you'd be doing.
Okay,
You know,
so,
only because this board, as a matter of course, has been trying to stick to between 30 and 34%, right? You know, obviously, there are extenuating circumstances in some cases,
Yeah.
but, you know, to go to 41, it's a standard lot. It's not, you know, a lot that you're losing a lot of square footage because of environmentally sensitive land. You don't have, you know, a weird shaped lot that leaves you at a disadvantage to everyone. I believe it's the central lot on the block.
okay. So I'd be inclined to ask for an adjournment then, and we could
I
speak to
think
the
that's the
architect.
best way to do it. That
and,
way you can kind of figure out,
so-
you know, what you can, and have conversations with planning. So that we're not just gonna blind say, no, denied. That doesn't help anyone.
Okay. I appreciate your insight, and if possible, we'll ask for an adjournment and, you know, come back with some kind of, you know, solution that.
Now, you don't have a stop work order. You're still working, or?
Okay. I spoke to the architect. The work is, I believe, very close to completion. They just can't get a CO until this part of it is.
So really nothing changes.
Well, he does, currently, he's living in a temporary trailer, which is in
Don't
front
tell
of.
us about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think at some point he has to get back into the house, like. Yeah, here, go ahead, Tom.
If I may, the only thing I would see that this being a real issue is that, well, I work every day. I'm a single father. The house it's just at the end of being finished, but I've been out of it for about a year now, and I really just want to get my son back in there. Now, I didn't expect that this would be any big changes. You know, when I saw that, you know, having to get the vestibule down, if that was what gets to get the house done, then so be it. You know, I can't like be held up for a couple months making my son stay in the trailer. I'm not going to touch on that again, but I just, I definitely, I would ask for an adjournment just to see what we can do, because that's how I bought the house, and it's not a big change. The neighbors are all okay with it, and I wouldn't be extending it at all. It's been the same way since I've had it, and if anything, it's just making the neighborhood look nicer because now we have new siding. It's upgrading the house, making it safer to live in. So I'm not going to give a tale of woe. You know, everybody has mistakes. Everybody has to live with what happens. This was an act of God, and I'm just hoping we can get through and get moved back in.
Please, what is that addition, about 50 or 60 square feet?
The vestibule is 59 square feet. The rear addition, the two-story addition, is roughly 530 square feet. Just for the board's info, by the way, just to expand on what Dean was saying, I went back and I looked at the building department records for this house. This house was built in the late 1950s as a two-story home, and the two-story home, when it was constructed, was approximately 1,450 square feet. With a detached garage, about another 250 square feet. So when the house was constructed back in the 50s, you were looking at a total floor area of 1,700 square feet. Assuming that these additions were actually constructed in the early 1980s, that even predates the LWRP. So just for your FYI.
Well, in the interest of trying to not hold them up, if we can figure out what that does, are you okay if we eliminate that vestibule?
I would just have to talk to planning about it because it's, I don't know how much it would cost. And that could sink or swim because I'm paying the trailer and the mortgage. So it's comes out to about $6,000 a month.
Our goal is to get you out of the trailer back in the house. So if we could do that tonight by saying, you know what, if we can reduce the FAR by giving up that vestibule, I think, I'm speaking for one person, I think I can make that decision.
What would that bring it down to, Blaze?
I'm gonna do some quick math right now.
Gets my son back.
I mean, it's not even 1%.
It's not even 1%.
It's not even 1%, so.
All right, so why don't we try and adjourn it, you meet with planning, see if there's some options, and then, next meeting's not an option, right? Well, if this is just an adjournment for the existing case, he just has to repost, he doesn't have to mail?
Correct.
So we could probably get you back on the next meeting.
Let me, back to the, to the topic, being that it is only 60 square feet that we're gaining by this, and it's not a substantial decrease, and without actually really making the house smaller, would this board grant it if we remove this,
I don't know that would do it.
Well, the problem, part of the problem is that this application is going through a separate review, not just by the board or, by people sitting here, but it's being reviewed by people who look at it through the LWRP.
Yes.
And they haven't even made a determination yet. They have not issued a consistency determination. So we don't even know where they're at this point with whether or not they're going to be able to find it consistent or not. And that really does play a big role in how the board can vote. If they find it consistent, they would have the ability to grant you the variance to 41% if they felt that the case warranted it. But we don't know that yet because we don't know what they're thinking. But with that said, the people who work on this stuff happen to work in my department. So I can have a conversation with them tomorrow and find out where they're at with it. And if you want to give me a call, we'll have a conversation. Maybe we'll even have you come into the office and we'll figure out how to move forward quickly.
That being said, if that vestibule is the only thing that you're willing or able to give up, you've really got to make a compelling argument why 40% is needed, because everybody would want 40%.
it's still, 40% is still a substantial amount that we're.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is
asking,
come up with a really good argument why you need the 40% that we can use as,
Okay.
something to lean on for someone subsequently coming in saying, well, you gave them 40%.
All right, so that being said, then we'll gladly ask for the adjournment. We'll speak to planning, we'll consider options, and come back with a better case.
So do we want to put them on for the next meeting? I know
Well,
we're
I
like
don't
that.
know that we're going to have a consistency determination by then. It has to be concluded, it has to go before the town board to be adopted. So,
So contact the planning department. The goal would be to get you on for the next meeting if all that happens.
yeah,
Okay,
All right?
all right.
Thank you. So we're going to leave this one open. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would it be helpful to read my
Oh, I'm sorry,
comments at
Sabrina.
this
Yeah, you
time?
might as well get it on the
Yes,
record.
all right. Mr. Chairman, the current application to legalize and reconstruct the existing one-story and two-story additions due to the fire damage does require approval from the Department of Health. This information is required in order for us to complete our environmental review. We have contacted the applicant's representative of their need to contact the Health Department.
Also, is there anyone here that wants to be heard? No, right? There's only one person here who was in a previous case, so I guess we're going to adjourn it until next meeting. All right, so we are going to start with case number 19229, Michelle Jennings.
Okay, on case 19229, I'll make a motion to approve this application as is presented,
Second.
I believe you wanted to
with the conditions moving anything that's on the paper road.
bring it into compliance either through an agreement with the Highway Department or removing it, correct?
yeah, yeah.
Good. We have a motion, second.
Second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved with conditions, 3-0. Case number 19230, Michael Cavaluzzi.
On case 19230, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
Regularly moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved, 3-0. Case 19231, Carrie Larson has been adjourned to a date to be determined. Case number 19232, Jennifer Ginsburg.
Well, I believe we're only doing on the variances, as far as, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. On case 19332, I'll make a motion to approve this application as presented, with the understanding that the building department will be checking the retaining wall.
So that would be your condition?
Yeah,
And I believe it was 19232.
32, sorry.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved with conditions 3-0. Next case, case 19233, Howard Peter Norden III.
Okay. On case 19233, I'll make a motion to approve this application as it is presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve is passes 3-0. Case 19234, Arthur Breva. That was adjourned to date to be determined also, right? Case 19235, George and Irene Cox.
No action, am I correct?
Correct, because we're pending secret.
Mm-hmm.
All right, no action. Case 19236, Brett Lawrence has been adjourned, hopefully to the next meeting. We'll see. No action. Case 19228, Comac 100 LLC, McDonald's. We need a secret.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the secret.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Secret passes 3-0. Now on the merits. We do have a PAR.
Do you want to have some discussion on this?
If you'd like, go ahead.
For me, I don't have a problem with doing one more sign, 16. I don't know how the other board members feel as far as
I'm okay with it. It's not,
okay. So I'll approve it and I'll read the variances?
Mhm.
Okay. On case 19228, I'm going to read the variances. Variance to reduce the minimum required parking from 1,393 spaces to 849 spaces be approved. Variance to increase the maximum height of a wall sign from 15 feet to 18 feet, signs 18 to 21 be approved. Variance to increase the number of ground signs of 2 per parcel to 28, signs 1 to 16, approved to 12, with case for signs 1 to 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, 15, and 16 be approved. Variance to increase the number of wall signs for a maximum of 1 sign to 4, signs 18 to 21 be approved. Variance to permit a wall sign not to face a public street, signs 18 and 21 be approved.
all right.
Okay.
We need a
Second.
second. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved with conditions, 3-0. I believe we have case 19086 now. We have findings. So do we, I have them also.
I am too. We read the findings and
Yeah,
just adopt them?
I think we need to adopt the findings, yes. Did everybody review the findings?
I have.
I have. Ed, or Bill?
Bill, you read the findings?
Of which one is it?
Case 19086?
Six.
No.
Not yet? So we need you to review those findings.
Yes.
I don't want to adopt the findings with just two of
Yes,
us
read
having
the
read them.
findings. This is a case.
All right, so we will, we'll hold off. Ed, Bill, can you review these findings before the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then maybe have the new member review the findings also, and then review the file so that we can vote.
If we're gonna do that, it's gotta be the full.
Yeah. All right. No action on case 19086. Schwing, no action. Case 1-18484, Diverse Equity Solutions. We have a request for an extension to 11/14. This is their first request. Anyone have a problem with that?
No.
No.
All right. Request to extend that has been approved. Case 19200, Daniel Cox, 39 Meadow Glen Road. We have a request to extend it to 7/22/25, 6-month extension. This is also their first request. Anyone have a problem with that one?
No, thank you.
That extension is approved. Case 19157, Eric and Nicole Van Dormelin. They're requesting a rehearing. Blaise, you want to give us a little insight?
Of course. So this was very recent that you made a decision on this case. This is the house that was within the LWRP that had the higher FAR, and planning had made a recommendation that the amount of square footage be lowered to comply with 34%. The applicant has reviewed the board's decision, and basically they're saying it's not enough space at 34%. They are proposing to make changes to their plans to lower the amount of floor area. However, it would still be above the 34%. It probably would be in the neighborhood of 36%. I think originally they had been asking for 40%. So they would like the opportunity to come back to the board to make the argument why they should be granted the additional floor space.
I'm okay with it.
I am too.
All right.
Do you want a TBD?
They have to re-advertise and mail?
Yes, and I think it would be in their best interest for them to get a revised denial as well.
Okay. So you guys work out the date.
Oh, TBD. Okay.
TBD.
You got 5 now.
Love it. And I believe that's it, right?
I think that's all I got. Yeah.